The winter wind rushed through the streets of Redemption Creek, Montana Territory in 1879. Snow stung like sharp needles against the skin. But Penelope Morgan hardly felt it. She stood on the town's main street, holding her carpet bag close. She had come too far and given up too much to let cold weather or curious stares shake her now. A woman arriving alone on the afternoon stage was rare, and everyone watched her. Redemption Creek was never her first choice. It wasn't even her second. But after fleeing St. Louis with nothing except a few clothes and the small inheritance her grandmother left her, she had few places to go. She answered an advertisement for a schoolteacher. It promised fair pay and a place to live. It was enough to start a new life, far from the scandal that had forced her to leave everything behind. "You planning to stand there till spring?" the stagecoach driver joked as he handed down her second bag. "Town ain't much to look at, but it beats freezing out here." Penelope straightened her worn coat. "Thank you for your concern, but I'm quite all right." She offered a small, polite smile. Not too warm, not too open. It was the same careful smile she had used for the last year, a smile that revealed nothing. The driver shrugged and climbed back onto the stage, leaving her alone on the wooden sidewalk. Penelope looked at the little map the mayor sent her and turned toward the schoolhouse that would also be her home. As she walked down the muddy street, she noticed the usual places of a frontier town: a general store, a doctor's office, a saloon, and a small church. Men in dusty coats and worn hats paused to look at her, some with open curiosity, some with interest she did not welcome. She kept her head forward and her steps steady. A woman alone was often seen as weak or as something to chase. Penelope had learned the hard way to protect herself. The schoolhouse was at the edge of town. It was a simple building with small living quarters attached. The wood looked old, but the place felt strong, much like she hoped she appeared. A tall man was on the roof repairing shingles. He paused and looked down at her. Even from below, Penelope could see he had a strong, weathered face beneath his hat. "You must be the new schoolmarm," he called out in a deep voice. Without waiting for her to answer, he climbed down with ease and landed on the ground in front of her. Up close, he was taller than she expected. He stood at least a head above her 5 feet 4 inches. His shoulders looked strong under his wool shirt, and his frame showed a man used to hard work. But it was his eyes that struck her most. They were a clear, bright blue, the kind of blue that could see straight through a person. "Nathan Blackwell," he said, holding out a gloved hand. "Town council asked me to make sure this place was ready for you." When she hesitated, he smiled a little. "My hands are clean under these gloves, mostly." "Penelope Morgan," she said softly, taking his hand for a brief moment. His grip was warm, firm, and gentle all at once. "I wasn't expecting anyone to welcome me." "Hardly a welcome party," Nate said. "Just wanted to finish fixing the roof. Winter came early this year, and you don't need snow falling through the ceiling on your first night." Penelope did not know how to respond to such simple kindness. Her experience taught her that kindness from a man often came with expectations. "Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. I appreciate it." "Most folks call me Nate," he said with a small nod. "You came a long way to teach here." His voice held no judgment, only truth. "I go where the work is," she answered. He reached into his coat and handed her a key. "Mayor asked me to give you this. It opens both the schoolhouse and your living quarters. They're connected, but each has its own door." Their fingers brushed as she took the key, and she pulled her hand back too quickly. If he noticed, he did not show it. "I'll finish the roof before sundown," he said. "There's firewood stacked by your door, enough for a few days." She nodded, tired from travel. "Thank you. I won't keep you longer." He tipped his hat. "Welcome to Redemption Creek, Miss Morgan." Penelope stepped inside her new home. It was small but clean. A tiny bedroom, a sitting space with a fireplace, and a little kitchen with a pump sink. A bed, a table, a few chairs, and a rocking chair by the fire. It was enough. She removed her coat and bonnet, set down her bags, and took a long breath. This was not her final stop. It was only a place to collect herself, to save money, and to rebuild a quiet life. One day she would move to a larger town where no one knew her name or her past. Looking out the window, she saw Nathan back on the roof, hammering in the cold. Men like him were dangerous in a different way, not because they caused harm, but because they offered warmth and kindness that could tempt a lonely heart to trust again. And trust was something she did not have to give. The first day of school arrived quickly. 15 children of different ages filled the room. Their curious and unsure faces watched her closely. "Good morning," Penelope greeted. "My name is Miss Morgan, and I will be your teacher." A little girl raised her hand. "My pa says you're from the city. Is that why you talk so fancy?" Quote. Some children giggled, and Penelope's lips curved into a small smile. "I was born in Boston and spent time in St. Louis. I did not know I talked fancy, but thank you for saying so." The morning passed as she learned their levels and placed them in groups. The older boys acted like they did not need school, but she had met children like them before. She was patient, but firm. At noon, she rang the bell. "Lunch break. Be back at 1." As she sat down to rest, a knock came at the open door. Nathan stood there, hat in hand. "Miss Morgan," he said. "Everything holding up? Any leaks from the snow?" "All is fine," she said kindly, but with distance. He stepped inside and held a small wooden box. "Town doesn't have a library, so I brought you these." Inside were books. Some for children, some classics. "These are yours?" she asked. "They were my mother's," he said with a soft look. "She was a teacher back east before she married my father. She must have been wise." She was. She believed books showed us worlds we may never see. Quote. Penelope felt something inside her shift, but she closed the box and nodded. "Thank you. The children will use them well." He sensed her wall rising and stepped back. "There's a social on Saturday. Town wants to welcome you. Best you attend. Parents like to know who teaches their children." She did not want to go. She did not want connections, but refusing would cause talk. "Very well. I will attend," she said. He smiled. "I'll come for you at 6, if that's all right." Before she could refuse, he turned and left. That evening by her fire, Penelope reminded herself of her rule. Stay distant. Stay guarded. Be polite. But never open your heart again. Yet somehow, Nathan Blackwell's steady blue eyes stayed in her thoughts. The night of the social came. Penelope dressed in her best dark blue gown and pinned her hair neatly. She wanted to look proper, nothing more. Nathan arrived right at 6, clean, well-dressed, handsome in a way that stole her breath for a moment. "You look lovely," he said warmly. "Thank you, Mr. Blackwell," she answered, choosing formality to keep her heart safe. He offered his arm. "Ready?" She told herself this was just for the town's approval, nothing more. But when they reached the town hall, and she stepped inside the warm room full of lantern light, music, and smiling faces, she felt a strange feeling in her chest. It felt like the first crack in her wall. Music and laughter filled the town hall. People danced, talked, and welcomed her with warm smiles. Penelope felt tense at first, but Nathan stayed by her side, guiding her through the room with gentle confidence. Mayor Williams approached with a cheerful grin. "Miss Morgan, glad you joined us. Blackwell here has been fixing that schoolhouse roof for weeks to make sure everything was perfect for you." Penelope gave a polite smile. "I'm grateful for Mr. Blackwell's help." Nathan looked a little embarrassed, but said nothing. For the next hour, Penelope met many townspeople. The parents of her students thanked her for teaching their children. Shopkeepers greeted her kindly. The sheriff's wife welcomed her to Redemption Creek and insisted she join the ladies' tea one Sunday. Nathan stayed close enough to support her, but far enough not to overwhelm her. He seemed to know exactly when she needed space or a calm word. When Penelope began to feel crowded by the noise and questions, Nathan leaned down slightly. "You need some air?" She nodded. He guided her to a small side porch. The cold night was a relief after the crowded hall. Penelope breathed deeply, trying to steady her heart. "They're good people," Nathan said softly. "They already respect you." Penelope looked out at the night sky. "I'm not used to being the center of attention anymore." "You hide it well," he said gently. "Anyone watching would think you're perfectly at ease." "Years of practice," she admitted before she could stop herself. Nathan's eyes softened. "What are you running from, Penelope Morgan?" Her heart jumped. He had used her full name, and he had asked the one question she avoided. She turned away. "I'm not running," she said quickly. "I simply wanted a change." Quote, Nathan didn't push. Most people who come out this far want a fresh start, often because of what they left behind. Penelope's voice was quiet. "We all have pasts. Mine isn't important here." He nodded slowly. "Fair enough. And it's still Nate. At least when half the town isn't listening." A small smile tugged at her lips. "You're very persistent." "So I've been told," he said with a playful glint. "My pa used to say I was as stubborn as a mule but with better manners." The music inside changed to a slow waltz, floating out into the night air. Nathan offered his hand. "Would you like to dance? We can stay right here on the porch. Just one dance." Penelope froze. A dance was dangerous. Not for her reputation, but for her heart. But something in his eyes was kind, patient, and honest. She placed her hand in his. Nathan's other hand rested lightly at her waist. He led her in a gentle waltz across the small porch. The lantern light gave everything a golden glow. His steps were steady and graceful, surprising for a cowboy. "Where did you learn to dance?" she asked softly. "My mother?" he said with a tender smile. "She taught me that a gentleman should always know how to guide a lady across a dance floor." "She sounds remarkable." She was. She found beauty in hard places. For a moment they swayed together in silence. Penelope felt something warm bloom inside her chest, a feeling she had fought so hard to bury. When the music ended, neither of them moved. They stood close, breath mixing in the chilly air. For a heartbeat, the world around them faded. Realizing the moment had gone too far, Penelope stepped back. "I should return inside," she said, trying to steady her voice. "People may wonder." "Of course," Nathan replied. He offered his arm again, but this time she didn't take it. Still, he walked beside her. She kept her distance for the rest of the evening. She danced with a few others, smiled politely, and avoided being alone with Nathan again. Yet she felt his eyes find her in the crowd more than once. Each time, something inside her trembled. When the night ended, Nathan walked her home. Their conversation stayed safe and polite. At her door, he removed his hat. "Thank you for coming tonight," he said softly. "I'm glad you were there." "Thank you for escorting me," she answered with formality. "Good night, Penelope." The way he said her name caused a flutter in her chest she didn't want to feel. "Good night, Mr. Blackwell." She closed the door and leaned against it, heart racing. This was dangerous. Feelings led to trust, and trust had already cost her everything once. She could not afford to let her guard down. Winter grew harsher in the weeks that followed. Snow fell heavy across Redemption Creek, covering everything in white. Penelope kept to her routine. She taught school by day, prepared lessons at night, and avoided unnecessary socializing. Nathan kept his distance too. He was polite when they crossed paths, but did not try to call on her. She told herself this was good. This was safe. But she caught herself thinking of him more often than she wished. Wondering if she would see him, noticing when she didn't. One afternoon, Sheriff Thompson came to pick up his daughter Emma from school. Snow was falling harder than usual. Emma tugged on Penelope's sleeve. "Miss Morgan, Pa says a big storm is coming. He wants you to come home with us." "It ain't safe for you to stay out here alone." Sheriff Thompson stepped forward. "Miss Morgan, this storm's looking serious. Your living quarters are out on the edge of town. You should come with us." "I'll be fine," she said. "I have wood, blankets, and food. I'll manage." The sheriff frowned. "These blizzards can turn dangerous fast." "I'll be careful," she promised. He gave a slow nod, not convinced. When they left, the wind howled louder, shaking the schoolhouse walls. As darkness fell, the storm grew worse. Snow pressed hard against the windows. Cold air slipped through cracks. Penelope wrapped herself in blankets near the fire. A sudden, loud knock at the door made her jump. She froze. The sheriff had told her to keep the door locked. "Who is it?" she called. "It's Nate Blackwell," came a familiar voice. "Penelope, let me in." Her breath caught at the sound of his voice. She opened the door and he stepped inside, covered in snow from boots to hat. He was shivering, his face red from cold. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Checking on you," he said firmly. "Sheriff said you stayed. You shouldn't be alone in a storm like this." "I told them I'm fine," she said. "There was no need for you to risk." "Freezing out here alone isn't fine," he said, his tone sharper than she had ever heard from him. "I wasn't going to sit at home wondering if you were safe." Before she could reply, he moved to the fireplace, inspecting the weak flames. "Your chimney is blocked with snow. Fire's not drawing right." He grabbed wood, rebuilt the fire, and soon the room warmed again. "You rode here in this storm just to check on me?" she asked quietly. "Yes," he said simply, "I did." The truth of it hit her hard. No man had ever cared enough to risk his safety for her. "That was reckless," she whispered, but her voice held no anger. "Probably," he said with a faint smile. "But I wouldn't have slept not knowing you were freezing out here." Quote. Something inside her heart cracked a little more. The storm outside roared louder. Nathan looked toward the door. "I should check your roof before the snow builds too much. I'll be right back." "You can't go back out there," she said in alarm. "Just for a moment," he said. "My horse is tied at your shed. I won't go far." Before she could stop him, he was gone. He returned minutes later, soaked in snow, carrying more firewood. "It's holding for now," he said. "But I can't make it back to town tonight. I'll sleep here by the fire. I don't want to harm your reputation, but the storm leaves no choice." Penelope looked at him, cold, tired, concerned for her. No hidden motive, no expectations. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." As the fire glowed warmer, something happened that she never thought she would allow. For the first time in a long time, Penelope did not feel alone. The fire burned bright, filling the small living quarters with warmth as the storm raged outside. Nathan sat on the floor near the fireplace, wrapped in a blanket. Penelope sat beside him, closer than she had meant to, drawn by the heat and by something far stronger than that. For a long time, they listened to the wind howl against the walls. Then Nathan spoke softly. "Why did you really come to Redemption Creek?" Penelope's breath caught. She had tried so hard to bury her past, to never speak of it again. But something about the storm, the quiet room, and Nathan's steady presence broke down the guard she held so tightly. "I was engaged," she said quietly, eyes on the flames, "to a man from a wealthy family. Everyone thought it was the perfect match." Nathan listened without interrupting. He only liked the idea of me being his wife, not the real me. "I loved teaching, and I helped a young boy at school who struggled to read. His father thanked me, said I had changed his son's life. But my fiancé," he said, "I embarrassed him by drawing attention. He wanted a wife who stayed quiet, looked pretty, and followed rules." Nathan's jaw tightened. "When I refused to stop teaching, he ended our engagement. Publicly. Spread lies about my character so people would blame me," parents complained. "The school board asked me to leave quietly. My reputation was ruined. I had no choice but to leave St. Louis." Her voice cracked. "I promised myself I would never be foolish enough to trust again." Nathan looked at her with gentle, steady eyes. "You weren't foolish. You were brave." She shook her head. "Most people wouldn't see it that way." "I do," he said. "You stood up for who you are. That's strength." Penelope felt something inside her shift. Relief, pain, and something warm. Nathan did not pity her. He respected her. They sat in silence for a while, both lost in thought. When it grew late, Nathan stood. "I'll sleep here by the fire. You take the bed." "No," she said. "You can't sleep on the floor." "I've slept in barns, on dirt, and under wagons," he said with a small smile. "I'll be fine." Their hands brushed as she handed him extra blankets. This time, neither pulled away quickly. "Good night, Miss Morgan," he said softly. "Good night, Mr. Blackwell." Quote. Penelope lay awake for a long time, watching the glow from the fire, listening to the storm, listening to the soft sound of Nathan breathing. For the first time in a year, she felt safe. Morning sunshine filled the room. The storm had passed, leaving a world covered in bright white snow. Penelope woke to the smell of coffee. Nathan was at the stove, cooking cornbread and beans with bacon. "You cooked?" she asked, surprised. "My mother taught me," he said, smiling. "A man should know how to feed himself." It was simple food, but warm and comforting. They ate together at the small table, talking easily. It felt natural, too natural, like a glimpse of a life Penelope didn't dare dream of. After breakfast, Nathan cleared snow from the roof and made a path from her door to the schoolhouse. "Thank you," she said when he returned. He reached up and gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His touch was soft, warm, and full of something she felt all the way to her heart. "I'll come check on you tomorrow," he said. "That's not necessary," she whispered. "I know. I'll come anyway, if that's all right." She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, that will be all right." Nathan smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. He rode away, leaving Penelope standing at her doorway with a heart that no longer felt locked shut. Days passed, and Nathan continued to visit. Sometimes he stopped by after school, just to check the building. But both of them knew he came for her. They talked about books, childhood memories, dreams and fears. The walls around her heart began to fall piece by piece. Spring arrived. 6 months had passed since Penelope first stepped into Redemption Creek. To her surprise, it no longer felt like a temporary place. It felt like home. One Saturday, Nathan arrived with 2 horses. "I want to show you something," he said. "Will you ride with me?" Penelope's heart raced. Leaving town alone with him felt bold, improper, dangerous to her heart. But she nodded. He took her to his ranch, over green hills dotted with blooming wildflowers. The land stretched wide and beautiful below them. "It's lovely," she whispered. "It's my home," he said, "and I want to share it with someone I love." Her breath caught. He gently took her hand. "I've been falling in love with you since the day you arrived, Penelope. You tried so hard to keep me out, but I saw your kindness, your strength. I don't care about what happened in St. Louis. I care about you." Her heart thundered. "Nathan, I'm afraid," she whispered. "What if I lose everything again?" "You won't be alone," he said. "If storms come, we'll face them together. I'm not asking you not to be afraid. I'm asking you to try with me." Tears filled her eyes. "I would like that chance." Nathan's lips met hers in a gentle kiss, soft, warm, full of promise. It was a kiss that said he would protect her heart, not break it. They married in June in the small church filled with wildflowers. The townspeople celebrated with music, food, and laughter. Nathan carried her over the threshold of the ranch, now their home. In spring the following year, Penelope gave birth to a baby girl with blue eyes, just like her father's. They named her Elizabeth. Nathan held the tiny baby with tears in his eyes. "I love you," he whispered, "both of you." Penelope looked at her husband and their daughter. She had once been afraid of love, afraid of trust, afraid of being broken again. But with Nathan, love did not hurt. Love healed. She had built walls to protect her heart, but this cowboy broke them down, not with pressure, not with force, but with kindness, patience, and devotion. And in return, she gave him something he cherished more than anything: a family, a future, and a child who carried both their hearts within her.